What's going on? Welcome to another episode of Reimagining Worship. Develop. Whew. What's going on, yo? Welcome to another episode of Reimagining Worship, how to develop a unified sound in a polarized culture. Earlier this week on my social media, I posted a video of Zaytoven. And one of the things that he was talking about was how to develop, or how and why we should develop our own sound. And that's really what this podcast, today's episode is really coming from. Like, why is developing your own sound important? How do you develop your own sound? What's the premise of developing your own sound? And I have a super special guest, a great brother, an amazing musician, amazing dad and husband, phenomenal worship leader. Listen, y'all make some noise. Well, I guess if you're on a podcast, you really can't make noise. That'd be weird if you were in the car. But needless to say, y'all show my brother Jason Melani some love. What is going on, man?
Man, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. I don't know how I can live up to all of those accolades that you just bestowed upon me. Um, I just want to say right from the get-go, if I get trolled by Melissa Chin for having some bromance here, I just want to say it's all good, Melissa, if you come after me.
That is hilarious, man. Well, yo, like one of and we've had conversations for years at this point about this, even this same topic. But one of the reasons why I want to have you on is because you are a person that really has honed in on developing your sound. Like, what do you like? What are your passions? What sound do you prefer? And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about this idea with you. It was about 4 years ago, where you were over the house and we talked about arrangements, and that's kind of where this whole thing started. It was after a conference that we both were at, and this kind of how this whole thing started, of arrangements and sound and genre, and I'm tired of everyone sounding the same and all that kind of stuff. So if you could, even as we start, could you give like just a 45-second kind of foundation or background, kind of where you're from? I know the people that's going to see you going to think that you're too young to speak about this, but I'm not going to put you on blast. You know what I mean? He is 67 years old, y'all. He's just in very good shape. But if you can kind of give kind of a foundation or a background about you and kind of your musical background and all that.
Well, I appreciate that. First and foremost, that ethnos conference that we met at, right? Ethnos, it was every bit of, gosh, that's going back almost, I think he was even 6 years ago. So it was that long ago. Yeah, I got to meet you and Melissa, and I just saw what you guys were doing. I was super impressed. And it was like within the space of Christendom. I use Christendom to be, the United States Christianity. When we meet in churches, it's so good to meet somebody else who's like, man, I see eye to eye on their goals and what they're doing. So appreciate you guys. You guys do a lot of good. In fact, Elisa was just, my wife is Elisa. She was just mentioned reaching out to Melissa for vocal lessons and words. So my daughter is 18. She's singing, and which is another whole thing, like the next generation. That's another complete, something else. But yeah, I grew up in the very apartment that I'm being interviewed right now until I was 13. And grew up in a Sovereign Grace church. I met my wife, we got married. I played a lot of drums. I was a vocalist first, and then I learned drums at 13. Played guitar when I was 18, and then I kind of cut it off there. So those were three things that I did. Went down to Nashville, not to pursue music, but helped out with a church plant down there, and then came back and found myself in the city in Hamden. Served at the Village Church, where we connected first and foremost, and started playing guitar there. And that is when my mid-30s is when I really took guitar seriously. And I've been just a student of not only guitar, but music. And so what I mean by that is that arrangements, music theory, and also the fundamentals of rhythm, because I'm a drummer. I love rhythm as well. So took jazz class in high school. minored in music many years ago, and so yeah, just kind of doing whatever is available to me as a musician. Right, these days we're like, what can you do? You can do whatever, anything you can,
Yeah.
which is playing a lot at home right now. So
Yeah. So let me ask you a
practice.
question. Why did you feel that developing your own sound and not sounding like the noise out there was important for you personally?
I think I heard a term years ago that I think identified with me is that a frustrated musician, right? I think I was a frustrated musician, and that I had this, vocal these vocals that I sang, and then I played drums for my church. In fact, many times I sang and I played drums simultaneously, and I was searching for an instrument that, yeah, doing the Phil Collins thing from the back during worship. But I was looking for something that would kind of marry that rhythm and harmony and melody. And whenever I approached the keyboard, I would just bang on it like a drum.
Mm,
And that's when acoustic guitar, it was just kind of like it was there. Everybody plays acoustic guitar, especially when I was 18. Um, but then, yeah, I just started playing, and then I took it seriously because I was inspired by a few musicians who I saw in my mid 30s, and they were doing something totally different, and I wanted to be like them. And I wasn't trying to sound different, I was trying to express myself in a different way. So I wasn't just trying to sound different just to be different.
that's good, bro.
I feel like I had music that was inside of me that I wasn't expressing. And look, I have some learning disabilities too. I'm big diagnosed with ADHD, ADD as a kid. I know it's all the same now, but I used to get my B's and D's mixed up. So we
Mm,
made bed, right? So that's how, the image is flipped here. So, and I bring that up because I really got stuck with all the sharps and the flats, right? So
mm,
I'm like the sharps and flats. Even today, when I'm spelling out chords, I it's like my brain locks up.
mm.
Then I discovered the number system, and I realized I can just replace everything with numbers.
Yeah.
Like a flat three, that's easy for me to understand. You just call out the key. And then I realized gospel players were, R&B and gospel players. They've been doing this for years, and I thought this was brilliant. So for me, it just made sense. It all of a sudden the language made sense, and I
Yeah.
just took off from there.
Yeah. Yeah, well, firstly, I'm glad that you mentioned the nervous system because we'll come back to that. Don't let me forget that one because I want to come back to that one because as it pertains to musical communication, I think that a big part is finding a common language. And I think that could be a hang up. If we can find a middle ground common language to be able to communicate with musically, then us flowing,
Yeah,
us riffing, and us creating and grooving together becomes a lot easier. But the other piece is that I believe you said is there's like the fun and joy and creativity from playing music comes from a space of like authenticity and passion and like
hmm
what you enjoy. Like music became I fell in love with music because I was able to express myself creatively. Once I started, and this is real, once I started trying to tweak my sound, so for me, 0405, that timeline was like Ty Tribbett's and like that kind of that neo soul sound. Now, one,
yeah,
I appreciated that, you know what I mean? That kind of gave me a footing, but that let me know what style I liked. But once
yeah,
I tried to sound like them and mimic them, it started to feel like more work for me. It started to feel like more of a job, and it wasn't as fun and releasing and creative as it was for me. But then when I took that sound with the what I enjoyed about the sound and created from there and played what I wanted to play, created sounds I want to play. That was like taking hymns and making them fit into this new space. That's kind of when the passion kind of drove for me, and that's kind of why that neo soul sound for me is kind of like
yeah.
that's my crutch. But like that's where I believe creativity really was established and was like, hey, listen, I like this sound. One is identifying the sound that you like, or the genre, or
Mm-hmm.
I mean the feel that you like. But two is like, instead of learn them to take what they know, but don't learn them to sound like them. Learn them enough to get that sound, so you know how to play that sound, and then bring that over into your world. Yeah. So yeah, can you speak to that?
Yeah, it's oddly enough, I've always been into fashion. I've always been into clothes. And I liken what the journey, what you're talking about, is very much like walking past a shop that you like. You see the outfit on the mannequin. You're like, oh, man, that's dope. That's great. You don't want to like go in and buy the exact outfit off the
Yeah.
mannequin, but maybe you might buy the jacket. You might try on some clothes and you might like say, hey, let me piece this and I'm going to take this piece of this jacket and add it to my to my closet.
Yeah.
And I think music is a lot like that. You can borrow ideas
Yeah.
without an identity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I can
That's
I can
good, Doc.
borrow. What?
That's good. That's
You all
good.
right?
Yeah, I like that.
I was like,
That hit me.
thank you. I
Yeah.
wasn't even thinking about it. It just came off. There's so many things. There's so many things. I'm like, as a confession, as a three-wing four, right? I have thought many times in interviews. I'm like, what can I say that's smart? And then like,
I
nah,
need
we
a
don't want
sound
that.
bite.
We want to say
I need a sound.
we want to say things that are authentic.
Yeah, yeah.
But but I can borrow. Um, gosh, like so in guitar world, right? Delay, right in the late '90s and early 2000s, it was all delay and reverb, right, for
Mm,
guitarists, especially within the worship world. And I think that there's a lot that still lingers with delay and reverb. That's an effect,
yeah.
okay? You could put on your guitar. If you take that idea and you just smother your sound with delay and reverb, you start to sound like other people. But if you just add like a little bit, you could really get a flavor. And then you don't always need that flavor all the time.
Mm,
Context is important,
that's good.
right? Um, so yeah, what I see is just like, how can I borrow from different genres of music? I've also had a problem, like I've always felt like I needed to fit in a specific genre, and those are rules that I have put on myself, and also those are rules that other people put on me. Like, I don't need to be a specific genre. I don't need to be the singer-songwriter guy. I can just play music. And if I'm just a musician, I'm not a guitarist, I'm not a vocalist, I'm not a drummer, I'm just a musician, then it kind of takes away all the labels and it gives me freedom to listen to classical. It gives me a freedom to listen to jazz or R&B or things that I even hate coming out. I'm like, man, I hate some of this mumble rap that I hate. I just feel like it's like, for me, I hate it. Now I understand being an old guy, being like, those youngsters, what are they doing? That's not true art, you know?
Yeah, but
So,
listen, but yo, you bring up a good point, because I was watching a video the other day, a tutorial the other day, and there was a keyboard player, and he was saying he was showing how he finds new rhythms, new patterns, and new runs, and he listened
yep,
to, it was like European classical music from like the 40s, and like they're on records, and it was just some of the most abstract sounding stuff that had different melodies in it, that he would take those melodies, revamp them, and put his sauce on them.
yep,
And like, but like, to
yeah,
your point, like, I think a big part of it is you have to once you lock in what you enjoy, like, yo, you have to be intentional about listening to other genres and other music, so you can add that. One of my favorite movies is Finding Forrester, and the idea was the guy was a writer, where he aspired to be a writer, but like trying to get started writing was difficult for him. So what the
yeah,
author did for him was like, hey, listen, type this, use my writings to get yourself rolling,
yeah,
and then allow your brain to kind of write the rest of the piece. And that's kind of what we're talking about here. Like, yo, like you said, take enough to where you can kind of find how to make that sound, and then create what you enjoy from your heart and from your passion, your creativity.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's also like for instance, like excuse me if sniffling.
Yo, you
Um,
good?
don't have COVID, y'all. I'm good. It drives my wife nuts, the sniffling. She's like, "Can you go in the other room?" Um, I'm sorry, I'm selling my wife out. She's good. She's awesome. She left though. So anyway, there are moments inside of songs that I feel that are actually better than the song itself.
Mm.
I don't know if that resonates with you or like there's a moment inside of XYZ song. Like I felt like one of my guilty pleasure songs is Africa.
Mm.
I've found the rains down in Africa. I don't even know. Gosh, what is the title? Is it Africa? I think it's Africa. By
What you
Toto.
say? You said classic? Charlie said that's a classic. 80s
That's a
pop.
classic.
That's
Well,
yeah, that's his
actually,
thing too.
yeah. Well, you know what? They just redid this. I think was it Primus that just redid that song. It was somebody that just. I'm butchered anyway. I love the dum 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 ba, dum 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 because it's syncopated. There's
Yeah.
polyrhythms in there, and so I can
Mm.
just you can listen to that polyrhythm, even if you don't like the song. You're like, man, that polyrhythm to a drummer, that's like polyrhythms are fantastic because
Under the
drummers
sea.
just get bored.
Like under
Yeah,
the
yeah,
sea. Yes. Under
that's
the
right.
sea.
You can sneak. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you know what's so funny is Corey Wong actually, he's a guitarist, he's a rhythm guitarist, fantastic guy. He did double stops and he's like took double stops, which is Stevie Ray Vaughan and Stevie Ray Vaughan. You're talking about all these guitarists like Jimi Hendrix, all these great, and he just applied these double stops that's popular to this kid's song, and
Mm.
it's totally changed, but it's still under the sea. It's just
Yeah.
his flavor. And nobody's sitting there like Corey Wong is a bad guitarist or that he's ripping off. No, he just took a piece of inspiration and just felt like, hey, how do I feel about it? Here's what I'm going to do with it. And I like doing that to worship songs, especially worship songs that I don't like. And
Mm.
I want to challenge myself. I play a little game with myself. I'm like, okay, I hate this melody. I hate this chord structure. What can I do with it? Because for me, I just get bored. I just
Mm.
get bored
Yep.
of, the standard stuff. And so, how can I approach things with an idea? Take one little small idea, and how can I expand on that musical motif to kind of make it a thing?
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if that
So
makes any
well, no.
sense at
So
all,
yeah.
but
So
that's
so I'm gonna ask you if you can kind of expound there a little bit. What are like two or three very practical ways that you would encourage someone, like if someone is trying to develop this sound, like what are 3 or 4 steps that you would say, hey, listen, step one, if you're trying to develop your own sound, do this, 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 and this.
number one. Be patient with yourself. Just be patient with yourself. I feel like I have just now, and as a musician or as a creative, whatever you're doing, whether you're into the culinary arts, the visual arts, give yourself time to sit in good art, right? Or art that you love. Give yourself time. Consider the practice of active listening and passive listening. And the difference is passive listening is what I just throw into my car and what I listen to at home, and I'm not really paying attention, and I'm maybe doing some other things. Active listening is when I'm actually searching for inspiration, and I'm going to make a playlist, and I'm going to search out some favorite artists that I like. Okay. So number one, take your time, be patient with yourself. Number two, know that as a musician, you have active listening and passive listening, right? And try to have some self-awareness in your ear to find what you're doing, right? Maybe you're in the car and you're passive listening and you hear something, on your Spotify playlist or whatever playlist you have. You're like, oh, I like that. I like that. Take and have enough self-awareness to dive deep into that artist. Find what other, songs they specialize. Find out what kind of guests we have. We have more collaboration now, which I think is great. We have artists working with each other artists and find out what other artists that they work with and jump off from there. I never considered myself like really liking Willie Nelson at all, but there's
Mm.
a few really good, Willie Nelson songs that really take you somewhere.
Mm.
Um, so don't be afraid to listen to just instrumental music too, with no words, no words, no singing, just let music play. Whether that's techno, right? Whether that's Sissy Strut in R&B world, old school R&B, right? Whether that's Julian Lage, who is a fantastic guitarist. I mean, he's just a guitarist who plays like very finger style. He plays on a telly. I would say, yeah, don't be afraid to just listen to music and appreciate the art, and just yeah, let it let it
That's
marinate for
good.
a long time.
That's real good. That's
Um,
real good.
I don't know. Those are like some three things that just pop off to my brain. I might have
A
hated
billion others.
myself for saying that, and like
No,
later
no,
tonight, I'd be
no,
like,
no.
oh, I should have said this.
No, no, no. Well, if I can tag on, because I agree with those. I agree with the patience piece. Um, uh, I agree with the passive and active listening. Even if it's like, yo, if you're passively listening and you hear something, like if you can't actively listen, take a screenshot or save it or send it to somebody. I'd send everything
Yeah,
that I want to review later. I send to my wife. So like most of our text message thread has nothing to do with conversations that we've had. It's actually things that I sent her to go back and review later. Um, the instrumental piece is very key because I want to even to go further with that one. There's more artists than Snarky Puppy. There's more worship teams than Maverick City Music.
yep,
I need you
yep.
to listen to something other than the beloved Maverick City. I love Maverick City. Listen, they do what they do. They developed their sound. Not develop yours. But but again, because I don't want I don't want no hate mail about them that I'm knocking them. But like, listen, find what you said. I want to elaborate a little bit more there. Find who certain artists have worked with and look up those artists' work. Go down a rabbit hole. Go down a musical rabbit hole to kind of see what sparks your interest. But the other big piece that I would say is like find out the sound that you really love. Find out the sound that like, yo, if like I would like to be around this sound. And the other big piece is find other people that musically that are in the same boat as you. Find other people musically that you mean that you can sit with, like when you and I get together and we can sit down and just check this out because I came up with a clip yesterday. I mean a couple hours ago from Never the Same that I'm posting this week. But needless to say, with me and you were rocking.
Nice.
But yeah, you about to say something?
You said something I wanna jump in on, and I don't think you meant it like this, but I will say that whenever I'm giving any type of opinion on another specifically worship sound, like let's just take Maverick City for right now, it is totally permissible for me to say, you know what, I love what they're doing, don't like their sound. As a creator, as a musician, I can say I think I don't prefer the repetitive nature
It doesn't
that
have to be
like
for you.
sometimes.
Yeah, you don't
Yeah, and it doesn't
because
have
they're
to.
popular. Because they're popular and they're mainstream right this second, and everyone's trying to sound like that. You do not have to like that sound.
Well, not only do I not have to sound like that, but I have the freedom to say I don't like that,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
right?
that's what I'm saying. I don't like that sound.
Oh, okay, all
Exactly.
right, good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it's like I remember being in it was a church years ago, and there was a popular song, and I was just like, somebody was telling to me, and I'm like, yeah, I do not like that song. And somebody was like, how, what? That's what we worship to as a church. I was just like, yeah, but I mean, I don't like it. That doesn't mean I'm not worshiping. That
Yeah.
just means I don't like it, and I'm sure I play a lot of stuff that people don't like for me. But being
Yes.
creative, but being creative is knowing that not everybody is going to like it, and you're kind of in this aggregate of, or this balancing act, so to speak, between the aggregate of what is sort of popular and what inspires me. And if you can like seesaw that and balance that, I think that's very helpful because you can kind of slip in your own little creative sort of spin without having to rewrite the entire worship song, you know?
Yeah.
And I think if you can exist in that space, that I think could be helpful for people. You just kind of have to find out what that is. Like, for instance, okay? Little theory, super practical, all right? Um, uh, Supplementing the 5 chord and the 4 chord and the 5 chord for a minor 2 and a minor 3, right? A lot of them have the same notes in them, especially like a minor 2/7 and a
Hey,
minor
hey, hey,
and a
hey,
minor three
real quick,
seven.
real quick. Since we're here, hey, go on and pull it out, Doc. Well,
Ah,
that's
okay.
without context. That sounded
What
really
do I
crazy.
have here? Oh
Pull
my
out your
gosh. Oh,
guitar.
oh, whoa. My guitar. Whoa. Oh, how about this? Wow, it just magically appeared.
Because that's
Oh
the
my,
purpose. Is like
let
I
me
really
adjust
want
this.
for this to be an extremely practical way. It was extremely practical podcast and video, whatever, wherever medium
Yeah,
you're
yeah,
watching
yeah.
this on, for people to be. Because I agree with where you were going. I'm with you.
All right, so you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, so I'm in open tuning, and I have it. I actually have open D tuning, which means for you musicians that if I do this, ooh, I might need to tune a little bit. In open D, that means it's from the bottom string to the top string. It's all a D major chord. So I can just do this, and that's a major chord.
Instead
Um,
of what would it usually be?
um, E A. Sorry. Instead, it would be. And in fact, you know, it's so funny. I had to look this up because I had actually forgotten EADGBE. Okay, so that would be from the bottom EADGBE to the top string. And so what this is D G D. Okay, sorry, D G D F sharp. I'm sorry. Sorry about it. Let me do D A D F sharp A D. So they're all this is forms a triad, right? Whew, I need to do this real quick.
Hey, listen, I'll pause real quick.
What's that?
I'll pause real quick so you can tune it. So right
All
now
right, so
you're in D essentially.
yeah,
Open
this
tuning,
is
yeah.
open D. And I'm gonna use just those three strings form a triad. D, F sharp, A. And then here's my 4 chord. Like really simple.
Mm-hmm.
So if I hear the difference, let me go 1 and then it's 2 minor. So you can sometimes, and the reason it's called music theory is because it's a theory. It's not
Talk,
music
Doc.
science.
Talk about it.
You know, so in some contexts, some people will hear this and they're like, "Oh, I'm going to go ahead and you take a principle and you try to apply it everywhere." This is also okay. So this is another thing. Like as a creative, if you get on an idea, don't beat that idea to death because it might not fit in every context. Because music theory is a theory, not science, right? So even if you are in a context like, gosh, I can't even bring anything up. I have no idea. But a 2 minor might not, like there's 2 minor. They have some similar characteristics.
Yeah.
Like in a 3 minor. So this is 3 minor. This is 5. 3 minor. They can share some feel. So what would be a good song? Throw a song out. What do you? Let's do.
Go ahead.
Build My Life.
Cool.
So this is 1 to 4. Nobody's saying you can't do this. That's 2. That works. right? So that's 4. This is where you can, if you're a soloist, if you're a solo player, this could be really helpful. Even if you're practicing at home, find out where the 2 or the 3 work and the 4. A 4 chord, the character of a 4 chord is very strong, right? There's 5, but the 2 minor and 3 minor are subtle. And in fact, if you know the Amy Winehouse's song, Valerie, right? Mm-hmm. Sometimes looking on the bell and I look across the water. That's just 1 and 2. And it's time to paint a picture. So that's how that that minor 2 is like a step up from 1, obviously, but it's more subtle. Just try things. Just try new chords. Just try something different. And also, for you guitarists out there, know your guitar, right? Like, the problem with most guitarists right now is they learn shapes, not theory. So if you're a creative guy, you just know, like, this is the C shape, right? So they learn shapes. So keyboardists, they can't learn shapes. They learn theory, right? Guitarists, most of them, like I would say 70% of them out in churches, do not know theory. They don't know what a 1 chord is. They don't know what a minor 2, minor 3, minor 4. So I would say, yeah, that's the challenge there for many musicians, guitarists. Hope that made sense, and we'll see.
So I want to take a shift there also, down another whole step, not practically, but like what we talked about before. When you and I started rocking, you open tune to C, so we
Yes.
can be on the same page musically. So I play keys and guitar. So now when I say the 4, you're playing the F just like I am. Minor 6, we're both playing A minor. You know what I mean? So can you talk to that from because stylistically, I come from more of a, like I said, like a neo soul R&B type background. So a lot of my stuff are in minor 9s and 11s and 13s, stuff like that, which oftentimes can clash with, let's say, like blues guitar, where it's, a dominant 7 or something like that. So
Yeah.
So can you kind of speak to like kind of how that open tuning to C was kind of helpful or creative or kind of created space?
Absolutely. So this is a key of this guitar. Number one, I upped from C to D because I found most of the keys that we were singing in were higher, and I was always capoing. So I went through the work to say, you know what, if we're singing in D, E flat, E. I'm probably one of the only guitarists that is like, yeah, let's play in the key of E flat.
That was the thing. I'm like, the song sets are A flat, B flat, and E flat.
I just did it. So I'm always using this capo. I'm not ashamed of using the capo.
Yeah.
And so now I'm in E flat. Right? Let's go back down to D. Okay. So we're in D. The 1 is D. The 4 is G, and then A. Right? So this is my G. To do a G, let me show you so I'm not like, I don't want to give you guys the finger. So I'm just trying to play here. So if I bar across all of this, this means that my root, my 5th, my root, my 3rd, my 5th, and my octave is right here. So if this is the octave, then if I go down 1, that's my 7th, right, of the 4. So if you say as a keyboard, I'm playing 7ths, I'm playing 9ths, I'm playing this. So if I just know that if I play these notes and I play this note that's half step down, that's a 7, or major 7. Real simple. So now I can find out from here, oh, this is my... So if I go up, there's my 9, right? If I can learn that in different positions of the guitar, I can get out of the way of a bass player, a keyboardist,
That's good,
vocalist, So this is the 5 right here. This is also the 5. Right? So you hear that. So this is open tuning. So if I strum everything, it all fits because it's all diatonic. This is a 5 dominant. Sorry. The dominant note is not on the top. It's hidden inside the chord, so it's more subtle. Whereas this 5 is a little bit more aggressive because the dominant note, that is on the top. Right? So I can also play that 5 here. So if we have let's just jam on the 5 for a little bit. So if you're a keyboardist and you're playing lower, you're playing, let's say, a Wurlitzer or a Fender Rose or whatever, really full, rich.
Yeah.
Like instead of me doing this right here, I'll go up here.
As to not clash
And I'm only
sounds.
playing 3. And I'm just only playing 3 strings. So as a creative or as a musician, I'm constantly challenging myself. Like, how do I fit? Like, what's the context? Well, how do I fit into this? And how can I not be annoying? I gotta tell you also, like, knowing the knowing the guitar neck and knowing the Nashville number system or the number system, I also know the 1, right? So this is D, F sharp, A, right? This is also D, F. So this is, okay, root. That's a 1 chord with first inversion, second inversion, and then the octave up there. If you know that, you can find your way around the guitar. You start to develop your own theory, and then you start to play on that. Like if a 1-7, right? If I wanted to play this, I could do that, or I could play a 1-7 right there. It's a little bit more subtle, maybe a little prettier too. So you have a lot of like options if you learn your inversions on the guitar neck. I would say if you want to get out of a musical rut, learn your inversions. Just learn your chord inversions, and you'll find.
Real talk. I'm telling you, this is gold. Hear me now.
Yep.
If you know your numbers, you can sit with anybody.
Anybody.
In any genre. You can sit in. Learn your numbers and learn your inversions, because those are 2 things. Because I agree with you, man. Like the same, because naturally, like right now, if I think of like a C9, I have an immediate chord in my mind that I always default to. Period. Always default there. If I think of that, but like if I can kind of I can get into that rut of like, yo, I'm just stuck here. I need another. Yo. Take that, put the root on the top, put the root on the bottom, take it somewhere else.
Yep.
So, yeah, go ahead.
So 2 things real quick. It's gonna be awful if you're gonna try and learn this to anybody and listen to this, and it's your brain. I have dyslexia. I had to be like, oh, let me slow it down. I had to write out my chords. I had to write them out so I can visualize them. I can also see them. Another thought for creativity: change major to minor.
Yeah.
Change major to minor. For instance, blessed be your name. Blessed be your name, whether found in the desert place. Minor. Blessed be your name, whether found in the desert place. So that's 6 minor. 3, 4. And all of a sudden, when I changed that to minor, I realized I like that better, because we're singing about us trying to bless God's name in the midst of chaos, fear, despair, anxiety. And for me, that's a fight song.
Yeah,
For me, that's
that's not a
like,
happy major.
yeah,
No.
it's and again, we're not ripping on this. I just didn't identify with it. Oh, I'm sorry.
This no, you good. This is great. So conceptually, this whole developing your sound, there's a holistic nature to it. So now we're talking
Yeah.
about the content, like even what you said with "Blessed Be Your Name." We're talking about the content of what we're singing about. Then we're talking about the sound that you enjoy, the sound that you like to listen to
Yep.
personally. Then you're thinking about the sound that you are creating from your transparency, from your authentic place. We're talking about inversions. We're talking about like it's a holistic thing that I want to. If I can focus on one just final word, is like the patience piece. That's what you mentioned earlier. Like, yo, be patient with this process.
Yep.
Because
Yeah.
we talked about a lot, and we talked kind of about it kind of fast and matter of factly, but it's holistic. It's holistic. Like for you to think through the lyrics of this song says this. Maybe you don't identify with that song because musically and lyrics are not lining up with where you are in life at the moment. So I appreciate even as you had kind of ended on that song, because it's like, yo, this whole thing is holistic. Take your time, do the deep work.
Yeah, man.
Do the work of diving deep because it's enjoyable. Like it's fun down there, guys. Like, you know what I mean? It's a good time. But do the
Yeah.
deep work of being patient and really seeing what you like, what don't you like, what sounds do you enjoy to play, how do you express yourself musically. Even with the lyrics, how do you express yourself through lyrics? How do you express yourself? How do you communicate? If you're not a musician, how do you communicate to your band? And that could be another conversation that we can have. But how can you communicate to bandmates if you're not a vocalist? But if you're not a musician, of how exactly you want that sound. So I think, man, I'm grateful for your time, bro. You have a
Cool,
lot of
man.
music out there, but can you give kind of a rundown, like where can folk find you, social media, music wise, and all that?
Yeah. Jason Melani Music on Instagram. You can find me, Jason Melani, on Facebook. I've got one song out on Spotify. Yeah, YouTube. I have a YouTube channel. Don't expect much, guys. It's just me just doing some things. So
It's
I
you
hope to
taking,
get
it's you
serious
being
this
patient
year.
and then developing your sound, bro. So do what you
Yes.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, man,
So
Jason, thank you so much. I'll make sure that all of his stuff goes in the comment list underneath. But thanks for watching. Thanks for listening, tuning in. Hey, listen, tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend that we are reimagining worship, learning how to develop a unified sound in a polarized culture. Until next time.